was thinking. We had a good turnout the first couple weeks, and then you figure it's gonna
right away.
Yeah, so that's what I'm looking at here. So we're gonna record just because why not, right?
No, for sure.
Is it recording right now? Cool. All right. Is this a good position?
Yep. Sit down. You can't see your head. Your head's pumped up. Are you a sitter or stand?
Oh no. What do you think, Boulder?
I think that's not the right candle. I didn't know if you just think.
Oh, you're in the picture, yeah?
Yeah, it's actually full screen.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. So that thing's recording too. What's that streaming with? That's probably Instagram. I don't know what that is. And then
This
you got
is
YouTube.
Instagram. That's YouTube. This is Facebook. I don't know what this is.
Yeah, I don't know what he's streaming. So okay, we're streaming like 3 devices right now. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so today's topic will be how bad is your digestive tract. So everyone who comes in here pretty much talks about digestive issues, and so since you're in the room, I will speak to you, and I will speak to everyone else who's listening. So there is a common denominator between digestive health and basically the overall health of a person, right? So you have someone who comes in and says, I have trouble going to the bathroom, I have irritable bowel syndrome, I have someone this morning told us they have colitis, there's someone that has Crohn's, there's someone that can have constipation, diarrhea, they just don't go to the bathroom, right? So there's a lot of people who have these common issues, and most people choose not to recognize even the minor symptoms, which could be something as easy as flatulence. And so when people talk about digestive issues, I want you to think about gas, bloating, belching, farting, like all of that is one and the same, right? Because when you absorb your food, it has to be able to be digestible, and you should be able to have a pretty good response from your meal. You shouldn't be bloated after a meal. You shouldn't be miserably full and bloated because you ate too much. The problem is that we have portion control issues, and then we also have an abundance of processed foods in our diets, and so it's very hard for us to digest that. And what we're really trying to do with food anyway is get the nutrients out of it. What we want are vitamins, amino acids, antioxidants, minerals, electrolytes out of food. That's essentially why we want it. So if you think about primitive days, the soil of even 100 years ago was completely different than the soil of today. And so if the soil of 100 years ago contained more minerals, more magnesium, more zinc, more selenium compared to the soil today, then you got to believe that every food that we get from the soil today is not as dense in nutrients as it was 100 years ago. And our bodies make up for it. But if you look at the deficiencies back in the day compared to now, you look at things like scurvy and rickets. You know, scurvy was vitamin C deficiency, vitamin D deficiency was rickets. Those are easily correctable. Pellagra was another one, a vitamin B3 deficiency, and it was easily fixed because they started enriching all the grains and cereals with vitamins like B vitamins, and so that was easily correctable. But nowadays you have different types of deficiencies. You have zinc deficiencies, selenium deficiencies, B6 deficiency, B12 deficiencies. It's rare to find someone that has vitamin C deficiency, but these things are easily correctable. The problem is that you're just not going to get the nutrients from your foods anymore. That just doesn't happen. You mix in the idea that we have irritable bowel syndrome constantly and leaky gut syndrome amongst everyone, and you have a recipe for disaster. So when we look at nutrients are how we function, biochemically speaking. It's how you produce neurotransmitters, antioxidants. It's how you produce even ATP. What's up, guys? Come on and have a seat. Recording, just FYI, so come on in. We got some other viewers. So we're talking about how bad is your digestive tract. And for the listeners and the viewers at home, Jonathan, there's Joseph. So if you look at the food and you look at the particles in the food, essentially we're looking at the nutrients we need in order to have the biochemical function. And so let's take B vitamins, for example. All right, so B vitamins are found in leafy green vegetables, right? And so if you have spinach that you're eating all the time, you're getting a lot of B vitamins. If you have kale that you like, which I don't really like kale, but I'll eat it just because I know it's healthy, you're getting nutrients out of that, right? The end product of food is sustenance. You need that in order to function. Years ago, the love fixation of food overtook that, and now everything has sugar in it because it makes us feel better, right? Everything has an oil in it because it tastes better to cook with it, right? Imagine trying to barbecue or even cook food without any type of flavor or oil. Like, it just doesn't happen anymore, right? So we need to doctor up our food. Spices used to be the issue, but now we don't use spices as much. We use a lot of sugar and chemicals for everything. So I'm going to focus on what your food is doing to mess up your digestive tract. And if you think about it, how bad is our digestive tract? It's so bad where literally everyone I talk to has a digestive problem, okay? Think about this, for example. Let's take the nut, all right? Everyone eats nuts, all right? If you're keto, paleo, almonds, walnuts, pistachios, cashews are a staple. So are peanuts. But peanuts have an allergy for most people. Why in the hell is peanuts so bad for someone? When 50 years ago, peanuts were great. We could eat peanuts all the time, but now it's like if you go to a school and you bring a peanut into that school, you're going to be arrested on site because you could literally kill someone. If you're a chef and you open a restaurant and someone comes in with a peanut allergy and that waiter does not ask for it, it's life or death. I mean, that's essentially what it is. So everyone's carrying on EpiPen, and I'm thinking, why in the hell is the peanut so bad for us? It came from nature. Why is bread so bad for us? Why is milk so bad for us now? Why is meat so bad for us, right? It's because it's the way it's processed. When you break down foods, it's very hard for us to break them down, for us to absorb them in a way that we know what to do with them, all right? So go back to the nut. Why do we eat nuts? Well, nuts have things in them called omega-3s and omega-6s. They're known as fatty acids. Now, most nuts will have a lot of that. So if you think about almonds, it's great fat, right? If you think about your macronutrients, they're protein, fat, and carbohydrates, right? Years ago, nutrition said 65% of carbohydrates is what your diet needs to be. And then 20, 30% of protein and the rest fat, which is weird because if you talk to most people, I'm sure even Abby, you're going to say, all right, well, I basically eat tons more fat and protein than I do carbs. And if you think about the Atkins diet, it basically wiped away the idea that carbs are even, good for you at all. The problem is if you eat plants and veggies and fruits, you do get carbs. They're just complex carbohydrates rather than the simple. So here's the difference. Let's take, for example, you eat something that has almonds in it, maybe peanuts, and a little bit of spinach and kale, whatever it is, maybe a salad, okay? Your body has to break it down. The second it starts even looking at that food, your body starts making enzymes to break that food down in the pancreas and in the mouth. If you start eating, it starts breaking down those nutrients, it travels into your digestive tract, and then what will happen is your body starts separating. Okay, here's a little B12, here's a little magnesium, here's vitamin C, all right? Once it starts doing that, it's not separated in a sense where now it's just B12 alone. It's still within a food particle by the time it hits the stomach. The stomach acidifies it, breaks it down even more, then it starts going into the digestive tract, into the colon, right, in the small intestinal tract. Once it goes into there is when nutrients actually get absorbed. So think about it here. You're not even getting your B12 up here or your vitamin C or your omega-3 from your nuts just yet. It has to get all the way down to the gut where it gets broken down and stripped away and finally says, here's omega-3s and here's omega-6s. And that's really what we want. Once it gets absorbed in the digestive tract, then it actually goes into your bloodstream and it goes into your heart and it gets taken to wherever it needs it. Go back to the nut. I mean, get a lot of fat out of this, right? Omega-3s and omega-6s, possibly. The problem is this. Your food's disguised with the nutrients. And so if you don't know what you're looking for, you're not going to get the right result. So almonds are high in omega-6s, not omega-3s. The chestnut is the healthiest nut out there because it has high amounts of omega-3s over omega-6s. So your supplement lesson is this. You can supplement with omega-3s, 6 and 9s, but you really don't need to do 6 and 9s. You really don't need, that can be inflammatory to the body. Omega-3s are usually anti-inflammation. So if you're eating an almond that's high in omega-6s and low amounts of omega-3, is that really the kind of fat that you need? Take it one step further. The omega-3s in those almonds, the cashews, and even the peanuts is something called ALA. It's called alpha-linolenic acid, and it's not even the right kind of fat that your brain really needs. Your brain needs something called DHA. It needs EPA. You get those from food like dairy and meat. Most of the people that come in here are plant-based, so they eat a lot more nuts for their protein and for their fat, right? Avocados for their fat. We eat sardines here because it's high in omega-3 DHA. Instead of me taking a fish oil, I literally eat sardines to get my fat, and I eat a ton of avocado because that's the healthiest fat in the world. I don't really eat nuts because besides it being high in omega-6s, it also has something called lectins. Lectins are known as anti-nutrients. Anti-nutrients destroy your gut lining.
It causes something called leaky gut. So once again, we talk about the absorption rate. Go back to eating the almonds, the peanuts, the cashews, the spinach, and the kale. Those nuts have lectins that basically block the nutrients from the spinach and the kale being absorbed in the body. Years and years and years of processed nuts mixed in with the idea of, antibiotics, and you've wiped out the lining of your gut that's there to absorb all your nutrients. Think about a shag carpet. Your shag carpet is essentially the villi, the little fingers of your gut lining, and they absorb everything like shag carpet does, right? But once it gets absorbed through there, there's a process. And what happens is those lectins, it's anti-nutrients, block the tops of those fingers from absorbing the foods. Then it goes one step further. Let's say that peanut or almond was laced with glyphosate, which is a mineral or chemical, a known carcinogenic that is from a pesticide called Roundup. All right, and I'm using names because it's a common household product. It's incredible. This known carcinogenic sprays plant products everywhere, and we digest it. The lectins go into not only blocking the nutrients from being absorbed, but then those lectins also are like pitchforks in the gut lining, and it causes little leaks all through the gut lining, which causes leaky gut syndrome. When leaky gut syndrome happens, it releases something called zonulin. Okay, this is a measurable test. Zonulin will show you whether or not those gaps in the gut lining are spreading open. And if that's the case, remember, the food the nut has to be absorbed through the villi, and it has to pass through like this process. If it doesn't and it just falls through the cracks, the nutrients never get released. So if your gut lining has leaky gut and you're eating almonds, you're not even getting the freaking omega-3s and omega-6s out of there at all, right? You're not getting this calcium and the selenium out of the kale or the spinach. So think about all the bread you've ever eaten. Think about all the dairy you've ever eaten. Think about all the seed oil that you've ever cooked with, canola, corn. All of that disrupts the gut lining, and then what will happen is you basically can't poop all the time. I had a lady come in last week, said she poops twice a week. Twice a week. It's incredible because it's a measurement of health. If you look at the consistency and the texture of it, it can tell you what the hell is going on with you. And if you think about it, your digestive tract has to be in good working order because it's an assembly line. If it gets to a certain checkpoint, the liver comes out and releases bile, and it breaks down fat. It gets to a duodenum, right, which is the small intestinal tract. Once the food gets there, your body will use that nutrient to produce something called serotonin. Serotonin, we talked about last week, is found in people who have, mood disorders, right? It's low. More serotonin comes from the duodenum than does the brain. So all these people that have leaky gut syndrome and irritable bowel, they probably have mood disorders because they're not producing any serotonin from here. And it's incredible because instead of giving the Prozac and the Zoloft, you're like, well, how about you fix the gut instead? And maybe your brain will work better. How do I fix the gut? Okay, that's a great question. You have to basically remove all the inflammatory foods. And it's probably the foods you never thought about. I think there's like 7 allergen foods that you can remove. And I think it's like dairy, corn, soy, peanuts, a lot of processed meat. And then I think shellfish and hard shell or something like that. I think there's 2 other ones too, which is incredible. We have food allergy tests here. We do halibut, oysters, clams are like rampant amongst people's allergens. And that's kind of weird because I don't think people eat a lot of halibut, but how many people eat salmon and tuna? I mean, this lady yesterday, we were going over a test so high in sensitivity for tuna. And she's like, I eat tuna every day. I eat tons of tuna. And she's like, well, maybe this is why I can't lose weight. That's how she is associated it. If you think about arthritis, if somebody has arthritis in the knee, their knee swells up, right? If they have arthritis of the gut, their gut is going to be like this. And you know those people because they're fit and then they got a pooch right here. And they're like, I work out harder, I eat less, I tried this crazy diet, but I can't get rid of this. I'm like, it's your gut because it's swollen. All your fat cells and everything around it is swollen and inflamed because you're basically putting shit in there that's causing a fire to never go out. And if that's the case, Could it be foods that you don't think about? So go to the nuts, lectins, seed oil, lectins, nightshade vegetables, lectins. What are nightshade vegetables? Mushrooms, tomatoes, peppers. It's incredible because you don't even think about that, but you're like, wow, how the hell could tomatoes be bad for me? Because tomatoes are like one of the few foods that once you cook them, it has more antioxidants in it. The skin of tomato has something called GABA in it, which is a neurotransmitter that activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is incredible because then I'm going to tell you like tomatoes might be bad for you because I don't know how it's processed. It's unfortunate because everyone says you should go organic in this country, but it sucks because if you don't do organic, you're left to get like grapes from Mexico and avocados from Mexico, all these other, basically you're not even basically giving back to the local farmers. We have to go outsource of this country to get the foods in here. And most of the time, the foods from outside this country are a lot healthier than the foods that we're making in here. And if you don't believe me, think about this. The Nobel Peace Prize was given for scientists 50, 60 years ago who came up with a way to make the wheat stalk a lot shorter. Why? Because farmers in the Midwest were saying, we're losing all our crops due to wind. Can you make a dwarf stalk that doesn't succumb to wind breakage? Sure. Boom. From there, it all started GMOs. He got the fucking Nobel Peace Prize for basically making this thing dwarf. And then everyone else said, what else can you do? Well, scientists are probably like, we can probably make derivatives of sugar. So then it says, cool, let's do it. So all the fast food companies, the candies, they said, we need a way to cut costs. Can you make sugar more affordable? So they started messing with sugar in petri dishes and came up with something called sucralose, which is basically sweet loaf back in the 80s. Your body recognizes what sugar is, doesn't know what the hell sucrose is. The derivative of that, which is very rapid today and abundant, is aspartame. Aspartame is a derivative, a derivative, a derivative, a copy of a copy of a copy. If you think about it, the body doesn't know what the hell aspartame is. And when you try to ingest it, the body's like, hey, we don't know what it is. And most likely that aspartame didn't come by itself. It came in something that has high fructose corn syrup, that has processed food dyes in it. You have to absorb all that shit. So if you go to the nutritional label and you don't recognize any of the foods, and it says natural flavors, aspartame in there, MSG. And it's incredible because all these foods disrupt the gut lining, like I said, mix in the foods that have lectins in it, anti-nutrients. And where do all these nutrients go? They go to the heart. They go to the brain for processing to be able to use it. Oils will inflame the brain and cause Alzheimer's. Processed sugar will inflame the brain and cause Alzheimer's, right? Your foods will tear up your gut and cause leaky gut syndrome. Your gut is your second brain. I cannot stress enough that digestive problems will eventually lead to something neurological because it just goes hand in hand. I want people to stop separating the two. If I can't go to the bathroom, that's not that big of a deal. It's just, I need a laxative. No, it's a really big deal. Whatever you're putting in your body is inflaming your body so much that you can't process the toxins out of it. And so where do those toxins go? They stay in our body. You mix that on top of the idea that everyone uses antiperspirants, you can't filter out the toxins from your armpits. You mix the idea that everyone's sedative and they're not actually working out, you're not sweating out toxins. Then you put on sunscreen, household products that have chemicals in it, you're not getting any of that stuff out of your system, especially if you have a malfunctioning detox system, compromised immune system, or compromised gut. So to back up, you have to remove the foods that are causing the damage and the inflammation. There's a second and third part to it, prebiotics and probiotics. Everyone takes a probiotic, I understand that. And if you want to know the difference between all of them, the higher the culture, the most likely the better. Lactobacillus and bifidobacteria, I think those are the two major strains, and you're looking at 50 billion units that you want, live cultures. You have live bacteria in your gut. It's good bacteria. You need bacteria in order to survive. There's a balance between everything, like you need inflammation, right? Your body sends inflammatory response when something goes on as a checks and balance. But if there's chronic inflammation, the body's like, we're chronically under attack, right? So what do you do to put out the fire? You remove the foods and then you restore. Prebiotics and probiotics restore your gut, but you can't do probiotics without restoring the prebiotics first because the pre feeds the pro, right? And if that's the case, things like jicama, turmeric, things like cumin, things like broccoli, things like apples, avocados. These have probiotics in them. And if you eat those, you're feeding your gut to that one day when you're able to feed it probiotics, which is your fermented foods. If you do sauerkraut, miso, kimchi, tempeh, natto, if you can find it, if all of those are fermented foods that you eat and your body still bloats afterwards, you're not ready for that food. Remove the foods that are still causing the damage and then start feeding it full of prebiotics before you go to the probiotics. And keep in mind, this is a process. We're talking 3 to 6 months. I told a lady today to restore her gut. She has colitis. I said, you have to commit for 3 months, 90 days at least, before you even see a difference. And she backed away. She's like, I don't know if I can do that. I mean, I just told her straight up, you have colitis you've been dealing with 30 years, 90 days, and you could possibly have a better gut and less symptoms, less flares, less going to the bathroom. I'm not ready for that. That's okay, because it is a commitment. The foods, it's not a great diet. I could tell you all about my diet. I'm still following it right now, but guess what? I don't feel bloated after meals. I'm not swollen. I go to the bathroom 2 or 3 times before 9 a.m. It's awesome. Brussels sprouts, I hated them before. Now I eat them constantly because guess what? It's a filter. I filter everything through my liver because everything has to bypass the liver in order to go to the digestive tract. The liver regulates your glucose. It produces glucose. It absorbs cholesterol and makes cholesterol. It regulates all your hormones. You need a healthy liver in order to function better, and most of the time people don't put the hand in hand together. So if you're just doing a prebiotic by itself, you probably need to do a little bit more. But my talk on the gut is this. If you take away one thing, what you're eating defines your health, but it's not enough. You have to supplement. You have to do something else because you won't get all your nutrients from your food. I cannot stress that enough. We've tested. I don't care if you're eating food straight out of the ground and not even refrigerated, if you're still missing something, right? Hey, I eat tons of almonds and peanuts and cashews and all that. Still not enough. Baldo, wonderful guy, vegan at one point. Algae pills to get his omegas. Still wasn't enough. It wasn't absorbing. When people come back and they say they take something, they do something, and they go to the bathroom, you can see their eyes light up because it's like, whoa, that was like amazing. I didn't have to take Imodium. I didn't have to take Miralax. I didn't have to take this. I'm going on my own now. The system's working again. Something's restored. So think about it next time that you're eating something. Is this going to help or hurt my gut? Because if you throw a wrench into the whole operation, you're setting yourself back several weeks, maybe even months. But it's very possible and it's very manageable. I'll just leave you with this. Nobody gives a shit about your diet except for you. If you have to be the asshole that tells someone, I'm not going to eat that, I'm sorry. What did you cook it in? What are the oils? You go to the restaurant and say, is it corn oil? Is it canola oil? I can't do that. If you had a food allergy, you would tell them, take the peanuts out. I don't want that. Why in the hell do I look like a bad guy? Because I don't want my stuff cooked in canola oil. Why do I look like the bad guy? Because I don't want cow milk, which, by the way, still has hormones in it, still has ingredients in there that will disrupt your gut. Cow milk's one of the worst things to put in your body. I just don't think humans were designed to consume dairy. But then again, the damn Amish have the lowest cancer rate, so they're still turning butter left and right. And I don't know what the hell's the difference other than their soil's probably a lot better than ours. And those cows are not eating GMO'd soy. And one more thing. Look at your soy contents. 90% of soy in this country are GMO. Soy derivatives, a lot of them gluten-free, paleo, keto, packaging. Soy is what's called a phytoestrogen, which leads to a xenoestrogen, which basically leads to inflammatory estrogen, which can lead to women, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, guys, low testosterone, man boobs. But the foods what you eat and you put in your system, it disrupts your metabolism, and you have to allow your body to heal before the metabolism is reset again. So kind of a bit of information. Questions? Comments? You want me to elaborate on the diet a little bit more? Okay, cool. All right, so your foods, I started with this. If you want to try a gut diet, I would remove the nuts, the nightshades, the seeds, and then I would probably start emphasizing more vegetables than anything else.
Cruciferous vegetables are great. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower should be a staple in any of your diets. They're great liver detoxers, and they contain high amounts of sulfur, which provide a liver support. Okay. Your prebiotics, I do a lot of avocados. I do apples. I used to do a lot of bananas because they have prebiotics as well. But you're really looking for something that has inulin, not insulin, inulin. It's a different kind of starch, and it feeds the prebiotics. Basically, you need starches in your diet, so you can't eliminate all carbs, but your starches have to come from like zucchini or squash. It can't really come from that of like pasta, right? If you look at your spices, I would definitely go with cumin, cilantro. You're looking at turmeric with black pepper. And at one point, I would probably think about using meat as a condiment, just because you still have a lot of nutrients from good lean meat that you can get that you can't get from veggies. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not against being a vegan, and I'm not like pro meat. I'm just going with the idea of saying, like, there's fat that you really need for your brain that you can get from sardines and salmon. You might as well eat that, right? I'm not against a steak. The problem is, I saw a lady post yesterday, had a steak that covered her whole plate and then some fries, and she said it was paleo. And I was like, that looks horrible. I mean, it's going to inflame the gut, because if you didn't know this, actually, the gut has a really hard time processing heat, and it releases byproducts that causes inflammation directly in the heart. So your meat is very, like, anytime you cook it at high temperatures, like above 600 degrees Fahrenheit, you're releasing carcinogenics. That burnt part in barbecue, like in brisket, like the butt end of it, it's all cancer cells. And in Texas, if I go outside and say, dude, you're eating way too much barbecue, I look like I'm an asshole, right? How dare you go, this is Texas, damn it. Dr. Pepper, Big Red, barbecue, Whataburger. I haven't had any of that shit in like 10 years, and I'm healthier for it, right? So the next time you go to a barbecue, especially with tailgate season coming up, and they have the sausage links, they have the brisket, they have burgers and all that. I mean, look at the people who are eating them. And I can tell you, like, if they're healthy, they probably don't eat a whole lot of it. They probably don't eat the bun with it. They probably do more of that than anything else, right? And then they may have a little bit of, chips on the side or something. What if you switched it? What if you went heavy on like grilled peppers and onions? Had a cauliflower, like mashed potato that you made? Would you be weird if you showed with cauliflower mashed potatoes, or would you be like a hero because you provided something that was healthy? There's no veggies on a barbecue table, really, right? So most of that stuff is not good for you, but the rubs that are in there are great. You can make turmeric rub for anything. I'd probably say the hardest thing to probably eliminate out of anything for your gut, though, is sugar. Because sugar is a huge culprit of gut disruption. It causes something called candida, which is a yeast overgrowth. Candida and SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, they're kind of underdiagnosed, but it's kind of like the new like Crohn's or the colitis or the irritable bowel syndrome. Sugar feeds bacteria, but the bad kind, and it causes candida overgrowth, and processed sugar is probably the hardest thing in the world to eliminate from your diet. And if you don't believe me, try it. Try to eliminate sugar from your diet and see how you eat. Do it for a week if you have a problem with sugar. Do it for 30 days. Better yet, go to the store and try to find a packaged product that does not have sugar in it. Even the fucking deli meat has sugar in it. You go down the healthy living section and you go to the nuts will say may contain wheat. Salt packets have sugar. I don't understand it. It's because we crave it. Sugar goes to the pleasure zone in our brain, the same ones that cocaine, chocolate, sex go to. How can you compete with that? So when someone the other day was like, are they making chemicals to put into our food that makes it more addictive? Like, hell yeah. Just like cigarettes. Why the hell do people keep smoking, right? It's like that addictive aspect of it. It's like there's chemicals there. It's not the nicotine, it's the chemicals, right? That's what it is. That Big Mac that you go have at McDonald's, it's not a great burger, but there's something there you crave. Brings it back to you when you were 12 years old, going to McDonald's with your dad, picked up a burger, a little bit of a shake, and some fries. Well, those fries are laced with a chemical that keeps it from turning really brown, and it's a carcinogenic. The burger comes in a wrapper that has carcinogenics in it. And if you got a milkshake, I know sure as hell that's not dairy. I don't know what it is. Years and years and years of that, it's built up, and it's like, what the hell do we do?
and you wonder why people are getting sick. And it's very hard to digest any other supplements. And it's kind of weird because one of the reasons why we got into the IV business was because people couldn't absorb all their shit. So you'd have to bypass it by sticking it in the vein. And it's incredible because, like, if somebody had a horrible digestive tract who was on chemo, they would recommend like things like weed. So their appetite could build up and they could eat something. But then I would also say, well, whatever they're going to eat, is it going to be healthy for them? Because if they're getting a bunch of fast food, it's just fueling sugar to the gut and it's going to disrupt the gut, their immune system compromised, and it's odd, right? It's just odd, but that's the cycle we're in. And if you think about it, most of the medical world doesn't have an answer for medicine for the gut. Just look it up right now. If you have medication for a horrible digestive tract, there's not a lot. If you've had to take Prevacec, what's Xylotec, what's Prevacec, all those. They're called PPIs. They're proton pump inhibitors. They block the acid from shooting back up your esophagus. Your body, when it vomits, it says, we're over-toxified. We can't take this. When your body has diarrhea, it's saying, we're over-toxicated. Like, we can't take this. Let's get it out of our system. So when you eat something and you regurgitate it, whether it's burping, vomiting, or just the acid reflux, your body's saying, we don't like that. We're rejecting it. But you take a medication to suppress that idea so you can continue to eat your barbecue and your hot dogs. I mean, Larry the Cable Guy was on a fucking commercial that said, you like your hot dogs, don't you? You want to keep eating it? Well, here, take this little pill 24 hours and it'll take care of it. Big old gut like that. High blood pressure, diabetics, poor liver, low sex drive. I don't want that life. I'm not going to take a pill that does that. That allows me to, continue that lifestyle. And then the medications basically cause like B12 deficiency, low vitamins here, and it's a cycle. But I mean, like I said, there's things that you can take on a daily basis that might help. Apple cider vinegar, it's kind of weird because it's kind of acidic, but it's a buffer. It actually creates something called HCl, which is your stomach acid. So people who don't have a high amounts of digestive ability might have low HCl. Aloe vera juice, you can take that as well. Orally, that helps your digestive lining. I think the probiotics that I like the most are probably sauerkraut, but most people don't like sauerkraut. Although he's never tried sauerkraut, which is kind of funny. Yeah, I like wild brine. They have a good, like a dill pickle kind, which isn't bad. And then I kind of stay away from tempeh just because it's usually soy derivative. I just kind of refuse to put anything soy in my body. But most of the people who want to supplement with gut stuff, L-glutamine's great. It helps, the gut lining itself. Ketones apparently help smooth the gut lining as well. If you're doing a lab test measurement for leaky gut, IgA and zonulin are two tests to confirm leaky gut or irritable bowel syndrome. Truth is, I don't think you really need a test to confirm that. I mean, you kind of know. You just ask someone how many times you go to the bathroom a day. They say less than one. They got a problem on their hands. I think what else? Do you have any questions, comments?
So for the lectins, I've heard that they are in the seeds. So for like tomato seeds, eggplant seeds, bell pepper seeds. So if you take those out, you're kind of removing the lectins from those foods.
Yeah, you can do that. And the other thing you can do is sprout them, which is interesting. And I think it takes 24 hours to sprout something.
I mean, it depends on what it is.
Yeah, but you can even sprout quinoa.
Yeah,
which is great. Right. If like bean sprouts or another things, like legumes are an interesting thing because like beans are great fiber sources, but legumes have lectins in it, which is the anti-nutrients. And it's interesting because I was reading something today. Peanuts and legumes have something called aflatoxin, which is a carcinogenic.
It's a fungus that grows. Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? Like peanuts, like if they didn't have a bad rap already, now they have carcinogenics in them. And it's just like, damn, that sucks. So it's like, that's why I don't do nuts anymore. So if you think about you don't do nuts, how many protein bars are out the window? Right? If you're keto, I stopped being keto because I couldn't do it anymore. Right? I'm eating almonds in the middle of the day. It's like, okay, now I'm gonna eat sardines and avocados all day.
But yeah, like apparently washing them and sprouting them should take care of most. I think it can move up to like 90 or 95% of lectins.
I don't remember the study I read. It was a couple months ago, but I heard soaking them overnight in salt water, especially like nuts, beans, helps remove it.
Yeah. I still go with the idea that if it came from nature, you're probably okay. But if you really want to get down to it, I mean, the problem with most of the foods is the pesticides. There's something called the dirty dozen, and there's a clean 15. The dirty dozen are the 12 foods you would never ever eat non-organic. And I mean, you're talking like grapes, like probably bananas, right? Spinach is on there, which sucks, you know, because I love spinach, so everything's organic there. And then there's squash, clean 15. I think avocado's on there, right? Which is cool. Grapes, apples, I think, okay, but like there's some berries.
Apples are dirty.
Apples are dirty.
Anything with a thin fruit layer is dirty because it absorbs through the. Yeah. I think oranges are good though because it.
Apples also have a lot of wax on the outside. So
yeah.
So I was trying to scrape it off.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the problems that we have in this country is not that we don't have enough food, it's that we have too much food. Like the spoilage is the biggest thing. So if you buy organic and you don't eat all the berries right away, they just turn to mold within 3 seconds of buying them. And the issue is we need to be able to preserve the shelf life, but bread was not meant to be in your pantry for 2 years. Like it just wasn't.
The way I see it is like plants always have their own way to defend themselves. You can't like run away from prey or whatever, but you know, anything that's mass produced is going to have more time to like evolve and not as fast as our gut can evolve, right? And so it's like they're ahead of like the peanuts or like the spinach and like the lettuces, but they have more time to evolve and produce more, you know, defense mechanisms that our gut can't keep up at that level. So anything that's going to like, I'm scared for avocados because they're so mass produced now that it's probably going to get there as well too. Just because they're just going to evolve so quick.
Yeah, well, I remember you brought up a point one time. You're like, look at the corn that we have in this country compared to the Mexican corn. Yeah. It was completely different, right? I think another one, there was a couple of ones that you said that were completely different. Like the bread's a lot different in other countries. I know people go to Italy, eat tons of pasta, come back and say, I didn't have my IBS flare up. Potatoes, yeah, that kind of sucks too.
Small.
Yeah, especially the white potatoes I heard are really just horrible for you. And it's kind of sucks because they're nightshade too, right?
I want to say so.
Yeah. So I mean, I could ruin food for y'all so much, but it's just the idea is you just got to look at sustenance. It's really not the idea that we have to sit down to a meal 3 times a day. If you talk to most people in this room, I mean, Baldo eats for 4 hours a day. He has a 4-hour window. What do you say, 2 to 4, 2 to 6?
It's like 4.
You know, those people are like, well, what do you eat? How many times? Do you eat 5 meals a day? Do you eat 5, like small meals? Do you snack? I'm like, I don't know, man. If I can get 12, 14 hours fast in the middle of the day, I'm good. I'll eat like an early breakfast and maybe a late night, and I'm not that hungry. I mean, hell, Sunday, I think I ate like maybe a few things all day and I didn't eat much. And I was like, I'm okay with it. But we have a borderline between like eating disorders and this fixation on food where we just don't know what to do with it, right? And that's the hardest thing. So I just say, eat what feels right. Like if you want to eat mac and cheese, fucking pay the price for it. The way I eat mac and cheese, I do the diet one, but it's processed, right? Because I don't like to cook. Baldo's the chef, man. He likes to cook. He likes to come up with all kinds of cool things, but you can definitely eat healthier. You just probably either eat raw or you have to basically live in Austin. I mean, it just sucks, right? San Antonio was the fattest city in America when we were in college. Went to Double Days one time. I was like, you got gluten-free pizza? And they're like, we got a salad bar. And I just kind of looked at, it's the little squares of ham and the iceberg lettuce. And I'm just like, there's nothing good that's going to come out of there. So, but
cool.
What time we have? We good?
We're done.
Cool.
So I made some food. It's a quinoa pasta with artichoke, garlic. What else did I put in there? Artichoke, garlic, mushroom, Alfredo sauce that I put algae oil in it, and then a bunch of veggies that are also cooked in algae oil. Yeah.
Nice.
So you guys are welcome to.
Thank you
that.
for.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, very
Thanks.
informative.
Thank you. I'm sure they're going to run into each other after enough, because the first time we talked about hormones and then we talked about depression last week.
and we're talking about this one, and it all just goes hand in hand.
Turns out it's all related.
It is.
Whoa.
Can you believe that? There's
Wow.
an article. I get this thing called Medscape, and I've gotten it since I was in undergrad, and it's a news article for medicine, and they just said the other day, plant heavy, less meat, less diabetes.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't know this was fucking research. Like, I didn't know this was a new like theory. I thought that was the case, right? But you know, that they think things like that. They said one article said gut disruption is linked to fibromyalgia. Like, yeah, but you just have a hard time finding a doctor that will put a direct connection between them. Y'all are the ones who are actually going to figure it out.
Because we're still not learning any of that in medical school. And they're still led to believe that they know everything when they're graduating medical school.
They're getting better at it. They're getting better.
They
at it.
are
I do
getting
have to
better.
say.
His sister just graduated, and I was very impressed by the dean who did the speech. That was just kind of like, don't think you know, continue to learn because, it was good. But I was a pharmaceutical sales rep for a long time, and I was just like blown away by how very, very little the doctors knew about any of it. And like even just the plants that the medication that were created in a lab were based off of, you know, and just that they were more likely to pop a pill than change your diet, which is really all you need to do, you know, but they just didn't know that.
Let me ask you, would you go to the clinic and buy them lunch?
I don't remember. I mean, this is like 2 years ago.
Yeah, but I'd say, right, it's like
Yeah.
barbecue,
Yeah, for sure.
Text message, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Charles comes from that world. I come from that world too, where you're on the other end of the table. And I used to work in pain management. Reps coming in all the time saying, hey, try this new prescription, whatever. And it was always funny because I would listen to them speak, and they would basically tell the doctors, this is the coverage you're going to get with your insurance. This is the tier that you want to do. You won't have. Yeah, it wasn't. This is the efficacy of it. This is the side effect. None of that. All served over lasagna and pizza. The staff would come in and love a free meal. I would sit back and say, I can't eat this stuff. And they would look at me like, oh, you're so healthy. And I'm just like, well, why can't you just bring some food that people like, you know, could actually eat and not feel bad about, you know? And it was funny because the rep never ate the food. I'm serious. They never ate the food. I know like we talk and eat at the same time, but I would ask them, would you eat this stuff? They're like, no, I don't eat this stuff.
Yeah.
It's usually like the same food every day. They just bring it to different places. They order from the same place.
Yeah, it's like whatever's convenient.
Right.
And also this was in Corpus Christi, and there's like nowhere to even order healthy food. You're just kind of like, you know, trying to find something halfway decent. And it's going to be like whatever grilled chicken, blah, 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 that this place over here happens to also serve.
Yeah. And I know that's like half the battle, because if you travel, you're going to have to do the same thing, right? You're going to have to go to a restaurant and I'm going to do this, modify it. But most of the time you can't. Like if you go to Maudie's, for example, and you ask for the Power Bowl, you can have them switch out the iceberg lettuce to spinach. And then you can have them remove the cheese, have them remove the rice, you know, like add extra chicken or avocado if you want, but you have to, you know, just tell them that. Most people just don't bother that because they don't think about it. So like the number one thing that people come in here for is usually weight loss, right? And if they come in here, they're like, I'm worried about traveling. What do I do when I travel? I don't know, have some snacks, meal prep, whatever it takes, you know, but they're like, I don't have time. So then they meal prep and they meal prep for the entire week. And by the time day 4 rolls around, they're like, I'm tired of eating the same thing. I'm like, yeah, but do you feel better? Yeah. But when I'm there with a bunch of people and they're right, well, just prepare to fight shit afterwards. But you know, that's your call, you know?
What if you eat
Or
all that
hashtag
stuff and you
balance.
don't feel like shit ever?
I beg to believe
And
that
maybe
there's-
I don't realize that I'm feeling like shit.
So-
Actually, I am.
there's the thought process that there's probably something internally going on that you don't see on the surface. There used to be this actual term called TOFI, which is thin on the outside, fat on the inside. And it was weird because it'd be like a gentleman like yourself, and then it's like they have, you know, backer, you know, the
But you
kidneys are
have all of
off.
that stuff checked, which always shocks me.
Yeah. So
That
then,
he's like, I mean, even Rowdy comes over saying he's like 100%.
and so to me, there's some people that are outliers, right? So like, think about this. I metabolize sugar differently than other people.
Like you can probably eat a sleeve of cookies if you do. I can eat the same sleeve of cookies, and for me, I have a higher risk of diabetes than you do. Genetically, I metabolize it differently. So
that's a thing.
that's a thing.
Oh yeah.
Like I've always felt like
Sure.
there's something I just like drew a lucky card when it comes to like how I process food or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like highly addicted to sugar. It's like definitely I never drank alcohol in my life, but like sugar is like
I also
major-
think that if he did like eat super healthy the way he'd probably be like Superman or something. You know what I mean? So it's like it's starting like this bar, and then even when you come down here, it's still like above the average person.
Sure.
But it also does surprise me when I see, like, for me, it's, like, I grew up in East Texas and we ate, like, it was terrible. Like, all we ever had was sweet tea with just, like, literally my mom would dump, like, 3 things of sugar in it. That was what we had. There was no one's drinking water.
Yeah.
It was sweet tea and Kool-Aid. Everything was fried. It was, like, a special night if we got grilled chicken, but mostly it was, like, steak and all that. But I did feel like I naturally, so my sisters are overweight. Like they, like my older sister, I mean, they're like in the 300 pounds, you know,
But
and
now your middle sister.
my middle sister came down to Austin, we worked and she's just naturally started. I also think like beyond like but I remember growing up just naturally kind of noticing, oh, I don't feel like I wouldn't really process it consciously. I would just kind of notice I don't feel good after I eat that. So like I would eat the side. So we might have chicken fried steak and like black eyed peas and cornbread. I'd have the black eyed peas and cornbread, but I wouldn't have the chicken fried steak. And it would just be kind of like a natural thing that I would just start noticing that I eat this. I feel terrible. I eat that. And so I just kind of naturally, so I've never really dieted or been super focused on any of that stuff. And I only eat when I'm hungry and I'll eat whatever the fuck I want if I feel like having it. And I've never really had any issues with that. Whereas I'll see someone like a Caitlin
But you
Rose
crave
who's
very
like
healthy food.
obsessed with, and then she's got all this gut stuff going on. And it's like, man, these poor people that get so obsessive about their diet and they seem to have like so many issues. And here I am, like never quite ever thinking about it. And I feel fine, you know,
But
having at least one potato.
yeah, but the thing is, you've listened to your body.
Right. And so I think a big part of that is like getting
Listening to
people
your
in tune with their body. That's my point, is like that's like a big thing. Because I think different bodies metabolize different things.
And that's the
in a,
thing.
you know, in a different way.
Most people don't even think about it. So I ask people this. It's like, if you ever kept a food journal before, a lot of times people will kind of like keep a calorie content of what's going on. I'm sure most people here don't even care about calories. Like haven't thought about calories in a while. Like someone asked, like, how many do you eat a day? I'm like, it's not a certain set for somebody. It's more like, do you get tired 30 minutes after you eat a meal? And people are like, I haven't thought about it before. You know, and it's kind of weird. Think about it next time. Because like what you said too, you only eat when you're hungry. That blows people's minds. Because we don't eat when we're hungry, right? Oh, it's dinner time. I should be eating right now. Oh, it's lunchtime. I need to eat right now. Oh, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You didn't eat lunch. They think I'm weird, like I'm skipping meals on purpose. I'm like, no, I'm just not hungry. And now I am. I'm going to eat a little piece of something and I'm good. Well, that's all you're eating today? Yeah, I don't want to feel bloated. Like I really like a flat stomach. Like it just, and it's the biggest, yeah, it just feels better. So if you have that, you're an outlier, right?
Well,
But you will get a bloated stomach. Don't lie.
for sure. And I'm definitely very interested in like optimizing the way I feel.
Yeah.
That's probably like my overarching hobby is like trying to feel as good as I can feel and feel strong and fit and healthy and energetic and clear and whatever. And so I can look at my diet and on paper I'm like, wow, there's a lot of room for improvement. I could probably get some really good gains in the way I feel by cleaning this up.
Sure.
And you know, and so but then there's also this part of me, and it's probably just my ego mind trying to convince me not to do it or something, but there is a part of me that's like, man, I'm kind of like really lucky in that, you know, if I go eat a big bag of candy because I've been triggered, and candy and sugar is definitely like my way to like feel like I had control when I was a little kid, and there's all the emotional stuff wrapped around my sugar addiction. If I go eat a bag of candy, like I feel like shit, or I feel slow, I feel sluggish 45 minutes later. I can feel that it's like brought me down a little bit. But in general, like I feel pretty good most of the time. And I guess I wonder, like, if I go and eat super healthy and super clean, I remove sugar and fix whatever's wrong. And then if I like backslide a little bit, am I gonna be like, your body's like, well, fuck that. You had your chance.
Yeah, it's like
now
your body knows how to process that.
my body is like
Right?
pretty
Yeah,
good
that's
at processing.
You're in a good
myself
homeostasis right now.
Like I poop twice a day, like clockwork.
Yeah, that's what I mean by like
Everything
it's
is like kind of working.
Like, your body no
Sleep
longer knows how to
great.
metabolize.
I can't
what's
sleep. I
stuff
don't
that
drink
you
brain
must
caffeine
have
I was gonna say,
to
stress
have
is probably
once
the
in a
worst.
while.
So-
The stress
so
is
that's
the
a
worst
big difference.
If I have caffeine at 2
Just
o'clock,
like whatever.
I don't sleep all night.
Like that's kind of hard.
So the fact that like y'all are in tune with it is great, because when people tell me that, like, oh, I go to the bathroom and I have no problems, I feel really good. Start asking, how's your sleep? Sleep's okay. How many hours do you get consistently? I don't know. I sleep 7 hours. Do you stay asleep all night? I wake up a couple times.
Yeah, if I drink caffeine after 1 or 2 o'clock, I'm gonna have like not as restful of sleep.
Yeah. So we measure sleep.
And then that becomes a vicious cycle.
Right. Because
Then
it's
you
repetitive.
didn't get very good sleep,
Yep.
so then you're more likely to have the caffeine the next day. And I can see that vicious cycle start happening in my life like very easily. And for whatever reason, like sometimes it's hard for us in our household to just prioritize like whatever the fuck we want to be talking about right now. Like let's just go to sleep, like, and it's tough because you have kids and then the kids go down and then you stick your one time to like figure everything else out. It's like it's an easy it's an easy way to get into that like vicious cycle.
That's funny. That's a hell of a conversation, because it's true, right? Because then you're like, well, if I get the sleep, I'll be better tomorrow. And that's the thing, is that if you were to value sleep more importantly than anything else in life,
That's where it's at.
then you're healthier than majority of the population.
I feel like there's like a maybe it's like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs of like taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I'm worried about this like super optimization shit and I'm like sacrificing getting 6 hours of sleep a night, then, or if I'm getting 5 hours of sleep on average, but I'm meditating an hour a day, I don't give a fuck how much you're meditating. If you're getting 5 hours of sleep a night, like you're not building the foundation.
Actually, you can if you do meditate.
Well, if you're doing kind of quasi polyphasic sleep cycle, then maybe that's a bad example. But I don't care how much yoga you're doing if you're getting 5 hours of sleep
Sure.
a night.
Yeah.
And so it's like I feel like there's like sustenance, nutrients, hydration, sleep.
Well, sleep's also the only time your brain detoxes. It's the only time.
Actually, you flush your brain when you sleep.
Yeah.
You kind of have a
Never
fluid flush.
Yeah.
during the wake period.
And I'll find myself or us at times focusing on these higher level things of like true, real optimization, increasing, higher vibration, state of being, but we're kind of like doing it, but sacrificing sleep to do it. And then I'll find myself like, oh man, there's
It's
something
just like JJ
backwards
Watt says
about
he
that.
sleeps like 14 hours a day.
Well, it's like
Who's
the
that?
I love it. I love
James
sleeping.
Watson.
I would sleep 12 hours a day if I could.
well, it's the hacks, right? That's the kind of issue I have with the biohacking
You have to
deal.
make
It's because it's like
$1,000,000, so-
if you don't make the time for the sleep and it's good quality sleep, you hack your way into it, you're kind of cheating the system, right?
Unless you get like really committed to polyphasic sleep cycle and completely cut out alcohol 100%, completely cut out caffeine 100%, and you take true 30, 45-minute naps throughout the day, maybe, but that is a real lifestyle that you're committing to get a few extra hours of work in a 24-hour cycle or whatever you're trying to do that for. To me, it's like, I don't necessarily want to go that far down that road. Like I enjoy an yerba mate in the morning, I enjoy like, and so I don't know, to me, I feel like if I can just get my 7 hours, I'm like pretty good.
I don't know. What do you think is the
hours,
ideal
every
number? Is
person-
it different for everybody?
I think they're different for everyone, but I will tell you this. We had a doctor who came in and told us, they said that the longest you could live without sleep is 11 days. And he said, sleep is a debt that you will never pay off if you miss it, right? So if
can't get those hours back.
yeah, exactly. You can't ever catch up, right? I used to have a baseball coach say he could sleep 4 hours a night. And we would go and travel, like, to the hotels. He'd be like, I'm going to be up before you will. So if you're doing anything, I'll know. And I'm like, how the fuck can anyone function off of 4 hours? He's like, I can do it. The way I look at it is, what are your biomarkers and your neurotransmitters doing that we can't see, right? So you mentioned eating at the time when you're hungry. That's a hormone called ghrelin. And when it's elevated, you're hungry. There's an opposite hormone called leptin. And when that's elevated, you're full. So if someone is basically not hungry all day, they have high amounts of leptin, which
Yeah, I think a lot of us go from like full to not full, full to not full. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm not stuffed right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
Starving.
stuffed, so it's time to eat
Yeah.
again.
To starving.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, it's
People
basically
don't just go, I'm satisfied. I'm done now.
well, it's like you go and you eat chips and salsa, which everyone has chips and salsa here, right? And by the time you're on your third basket, then the food comes. And then people are like, God, I got to eat all this stuff, right? And they don't take it. I mean, you could like cut them in thirds and feed them to people, but people don't do that, right? And it's incredible because then I kind of think like I saw, I was amazed with Bali the other day. There's some place that's going to implement an all-you-can-eat in their fast food chain. Who was it? I was talking about some restaurant, and I was like, why the hell they're going like all-you-can-eat? Like that's still a thing?
That's amazing.
But yeah, you know, like it's pretty incredible that that's still the case. And so, yeah. So if you were to emphasize like those things, like someone says, okay, what is overall health? Sleep, water, flexibility, good mental state, nutrition, and then reducing like inflammation.
Awareness.
So then that's what it comes down to is an awareness, right? The idea that I'm tired, I'm going to go to sleep because I'm not going to fight it. My body's aching, I'm not going to go work out today. I'm irritable, I'm going to accept it and just, accept my depression, and I'm going to manage it right now. I'm having a panic attack. I had a lady walk in. I walked into a lady's room one time, and she was like, I was like, what's going on? I'm having a panic attack. And she was very calm when that happened. And then she said it. I was like, what do I need to do anything? She said, no, I'll pass in about 5 minutes. She was, what can I help you with? And I was like, oh, you're the calm one? I was like, okay, cool. So the idea that those things are just how we function, it's like, okay, how do I manage it? It's not going to go away, right? Sleep, something I need to address. Hydration, I need to address my hydration. You talk about water. There's guys that come in here, they run circles around us. They're like, your water should go in a stainless steel or a copper bottle, and you should basically remove the lid, set it on a grounding pad outside under the sun so the water comes into the water and gives it a nice kind of ionization. Yeah. And I'm like, that's cool, right? It's like the people who come and do the infrared saunas, and they're like, why do you do infrared saunas? Because I do EMF detoxing, right? And they're like, because they worry about EMFs. So now at night before I go to bed,
if you get the right infrared sauna, there's like no EMF.
Right,
but highly shielded.
But we worked at one before that had Bluetooth in it. And so I walked in, like, you're negating the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get away from Bluetooth, and it's here. It's just like the other day, our supervising doc was like, do you use Bluetooth in your car? I was like, yeah, just you walk around in a capsule of just EMF just going around.
True, but like if you use an EMF gauge and read the amount of EMF coming from, low BLE, Bluetooth low energy, versus like an unshielded, a router or an unshielded infrared sauna. I mean, those are like orders of magnitude different amounts of EMF.
Yeah. So it's funny. At night, I unplug the router, and my wife gives me shit for it every time too, because she's like, "Go plug it in." She's, "Why do you do that?" I'm like, "I just don't want it blasting." So like starting a year ago, I put everything on airplane mode. And then some people turn off their phone completely. But it's all the little things like that, right? Next thing I saw some EMF underwear blockers.
Oh,
Because think about it, if you put your phone and where is it going to go?
yeah.
There's
I do kind of feel weird about that. Like, if I drop my phone in my lap if I'm driving or like in my back pocket, all of a sudden it's like, I don't know, it kind of feels weird.
I
Like,
do
I
drive
don't
with my
like
phone
it.
right here, which is really
But then I
bad.
always think about that and I move
it.
it.
well,
Me neither.
most doctors
Okay,
don't have the
okay.
scrubs, right? And so where do they put their phone? They put it right here. Like every time. And I just look at it like, oh, I'm going to do it. But I put my phone right here. And you see that size of that phone, it's like this big. So it's like all that radiation just constantly just right here. So, it's not the greatest thing in the world. That's why I do glutathione all the time.
Yeah, 1 with them and 130.
All right, cool. All right. So let me wrap this up. Do y'all want to, we'll go over here and then I need to say hi to you because I haven't seen you in like forever.
I have to run. Can I have a check real fast?
For the watch.
What is it for?
3
All the time now.